Mic check 1, 2. Can everyone hear me out there? If you're already watching, we're going to begin this at 1 p.m. sharp and just jump right into it. So if you haven't already done so and signed in with your YouTube account and introduced yourself in the chat, please do so now. And then we will begin as soon as 1 o'clock rolls around. Hello and welcome, Rebecca. Can you hear me okay? Hello, Demos. Welcome, Jacqueline. Welcome, Kenny. Thanks for joining us. We're going to begin at 1 p.m. sharp. Hello, John. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right, the time is now 1 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and kick this webinar off entitled In Depth Managing Classroom iPads. So, thank you all very much for joining me this afternoon. Those who were in the morning session uh, got a good overlook at what AirWatch is all about and how to get started. This session is intended to kind of go into actually using AirWatch and how to manage those devices. So we're going to be covering a lot more of how to actually use the AirWatch web console. So with that, if you haven't already done so, just introduce yourself in the chat. I see got for the most part some activity going on. And yeah, introduce yourself, so just so we can take attendance, and it'll help us mark your attendance in Key to Learn. So with that, let's begin. So I just want to cover some prerequisites, which when we kind of looked at the attendance list, we noticed that the prerequisites were not meant for most of the attendees here, except for Jacqueline, and that being the first one. So with this course, we were hoping that you guys would all have AirWatch access granted by your principal through LAS. Um, and the idea here is so that you guys would be able to sign in and follow along, because we wanted to kind of show how to actually use AirWatch in this webinar. And the problem is that if you haven't been added in to the AirWatch group already, it's going to be a little bit difficult to follow along. However, feel free to watch it, and maybe you can follow along, just visually watching what I'm doing on the screen, and you know you should be able to take away some things from this webinar. But I'm actually going to show how to use the AirWatch product, which from what I gathered by looking at the attendees list, a lot of actually I think a large majority of the people on that list didn't have access to AirWatch. So um, yeah, well, that's one thing that kind of threw me off this afternoon. So um, that's fine. What I'll say is that you can watch the webinar. You can take away some things from it. I wouldn't expect you to remember everything on how to use AirWatch, just because if you're not able to sign in and do it along with me, it might not, it might not all make sense as far as if the first time you're seeing it and you can't quite do it yourself. Hands-on learning. We were also hoping that you guys would at least have one device enrolled in AirWatch. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you already have. Even if you don't have access to the console, I'm pretty confident that a lot of you would have at least one device enrolled in AirWatch, because if you got a brand new iPad, it's already been forced into AirWatch. And there are some links in the video description, so that's one other thing to be cognizant of. Now, before we begin, this webinar is being recorded, and there will be a link available at the end of the webinar. This webinar is recorded, and the link that you're using to watch this webinar is the same link you can use going forward to go back and watch it, because it is being recorded. So, for example, if you don't have access to AirWatch and you're not able to log in to the AirWatch web console, um, and you just want to watch me and follow along, that's great. And then you could actually use this video as a reference point in the future when you actually do have access to AirWatch, which is actually, like I said, granted by your principal through LAS. So in LAS, they basically go in and they add you, and we send them instructions. Also, before we begin, I just want to let you know that there is about a 10-second delay between the moment I say something and the moment you guys actually hear it. So if you're asking a question in the chat and I haven't quite addressed it yet, it's not that I'm ignoring you, it's just that 10-second delay. So you'll see that I'll catch up with you guys and answer that question. So just be cognizant of that 10-second delay. And of course, feel free to ask questions in the chat. So, before we begin, also, if you hover your mouse over the YouTube video player, you'll see that there's a gear icon in the bottom right-hand corner. If you click that gear icon, you can actually adjust the quality from something from like 480p to 1080p or 720p if you find it's a little bit difficult to read. So you can toggle between those two. Just note that it could be a little bit slower if you're on the higher definition resolutions versus the lower ones. You can leave it at auto, and that would be YouTube's way of automatically detecting what's the best, but that's entirely up to you. Also, if you look next to the volume control on the video, you'll see that there's a button that says live. If you see that that live is gray and not red, it means that the video has kind of not fallen behind a little bit. If you actually click the wording that says live, you'll see that a red dot will appear next to it, and then you'll be on the quote-unquote livest version possible of this webinar. So you'll be caught up. So with that, I'm just going to dive right in. So this morning, I went over in our first session just kind of introduction to AirWatch and how it all works as far as the iPads go. So the intention of this one is to actually go in and actually start using AirWatch to show you how we would manage a device using AirWatch that way. We're also going to cover some common issues that come up with AirWatch as well as the iPads, um, and that will be done after closer to the end or basically as we go along. It's being added to AirWatch for OA demos. Okay, yeah, I can send you guys instructions for being added into AirWatch. Oh, you got it? Okay. The instructions are actually not overly difficult. I would try to simulate it here, but basically your principal would come into LAS, which is on the school shared folder on the desktop. So here's my school, but you guys will have your school name there. And using the LAS shortcut in on the desktop, they would basically come in here, um, find find you on the list in LAS. I actually can't really show you because I'm not a principal, so it won't actually show the group for me. But it's pretty straightforward. Let me see if I can 9991. Here's a test school. Maybe I can do that. You have the link to the actual instructions? Anyway, you can hey put that in the chat, and then I'll open it up here. Yeah, it's not. It takes like it doesn't take very long, but so the actual part of going into LAS, finding your username, adding you to the EMM group, your principal can do that, or actually the principal is the only one that can do that. Oh, I don't have access. You didn't share that right, did you? Oh wait, you know what? I'm signed in with the TDSB account. That's why. Oh, file. Please check the address and try again. It's not working. It's probably because I'm signed in with the other account. But basically, they come into LAS, they find a teacher name, they would add you in over here, and then they would basically go to add user to group, and then from here they can choose the EMM group and add you in. However, even if they were to do that today or now or right away, it takes 24 hours for the permissions to kick in. So let's say they came in here and they added you to the group. In this case, I don't have the group here. Like I said, I'm not a principal, so it doesn't show up for me. But your principal, when they're in LAS, they would see a group here that says 9991-EMM administrators, and they would basically just select and add you in, and then you would have access to that group. Yeah, see, she can't open the file either. Your link's broken. I wonder if the oh, see, I thought I was going crazy. Yeah. No, he's gonna put a new one in here. It's not overly difficult, and if your principal has any difficulties with it, they can contact us at the client service desk and we can get you added in. And then basically once it should take effect, they should be able to add you in immediately. But then the following day is when you actually get access. Okay, here we go. This is a working document. So yeah, we send this document out whenever you guys register for AirWatch. So as I covered in the morning session, which some of you may not have actually been in the morning session, we talked about the different ways in which you can get started in AirWatch, and you choose whether you want to do self-enrollment or have field services go on site and do the enrollment with you guys. In both cases, what we do is we send these instructions right after we're aware of what you guys want to do. So we get these instructions here. It just basically they just instruct your principal to go into LAS, click add user to group, they find you, and we're adding you to the EMM administrator group. And once you, I need permission. Samir, I think what happened, Samir, is that you're actually, I can see just by your username in the chat that you're probably logged in with a personal Gmail account. If you sign in with your TDSB email address into the Google space, you should have access to that document because the permissions on this document, I can see all the people here who are currently looking at it. You have to be signed in with your TDSB account. So if you look in the top right-hand corner, this one is a personal account below, and then this one's my TDSB account here. So you need to be able to, you have to be signed in with your TDSB account. So if you're signed in with a personal one, you just click add account, and then it would take you to the sign-in screen, and you would type in, I assume Samir dot, and then your last name, and then at tdsb.on.ca, and it should take you to the sign-in screen for AW. Yeah, and then once you're signed in, then you'll have permission to access that document because it's only TDSB users by default that have access to this document. But yeah, that's the gist of it. They go to LAS, they add you to the group, and like it says here, it'll take 24 to 48 hours for your account to actually have access. So we went through the attendance list, and Jacqueline, you're actually the only one who currently has access to AirWatch out of, I believe, the 12 or so people that signed up. So This is good for you, I guess. For everyone else, again, you can always come back and watch this video later. I would just encourage that you just watch me as I go along because if you didn't go to the morning session or this is the first time you're hearing about AirWatch, this could be a little bit much. But if you stick with me, hopefully it can make some sense for you. So with that, I'm going to begin. So we're going to go ahead and cover the first part of actually logging into the AirWatch console. So in the first webinar, we kind of showed the difference between the different iPads. You know, you have your this is an example of a AirWatch iPad, and we can tell that because it has the TDSB background, and it's got the blue background. And then the most important part is the presence of these two apps, the Agent app and the Catalog app. So if you see an iPad that has a blue background and has these two apps, you know that it's already in AirWatch. We also covered the different restrictions that occur on the device, such as if this is a TDSB iPad by default, when it's in AirWatch, the App Store is not there, as you can see. And when we go into settings, there is no passcode settings there. So there's a lot of restrictions on the device. And then we went on to show how we can actually turn off those restrictions by launching the Agent app and then signing in with our employee number and password, which will then unlock all the restrictions on the iPad. Um, just out of curiosity, for those that are watching, how many people here, particularly Jacqueline, do you know about this feature here? This signing into the AirWatch Agent app and unlocking all the permissions. I just want to get a feel of where we're at. Okay. Yeah. So just I thought you're aware of that. So I did see some of the people were here from the morning session. So I didn't want to go too much into detail about that again. So sorry if this is kind of repeating myself, but I just for those that maybe missed the morning session and this is the first time they're hearing about it, I'm just going to quickly cover it. But the idea here is that the TDSB iPads that are rolled in AirWatch will have that Agent app and that Catalog app, right? And by default, there are restrictions on this iPad that prevent students from going to the App Store and downloading apps and putting them onto the iPad. There are also a lot of restrictions that prevent them from signing in with an Apple ID. There's no Apple ID sign in on the left hand side. They cannot put passcodes on the device, and that was just to prevent students from putting apps that we didn't want on there, or putting a passcode on the device, but then not telling you guys what the password is, and then effectively locking you out. Of course, at any moment you can circumvent all these restrictions, and how you would circumvent these restrictions is you would basically launch the Agent app, which will take you to a sign-in screen here. And any TDSB employee can put in their employee number and password on this screen here, and it will unlock all the restrictions. So I'll just show you that right now. I'm going to quickly put in the employee number and my password. Okay. So I got my password. So I got my employee number and my password filled in here. When I tap login, what's going to happen? It's going to take all the restrictions on this device and remove them until I sign out of this Agent app. So you can consider it now being in what we'll say is teacher mode, right? Whereas before it was in student mode. There was no app store. There was nothing that I could actually do on the well, not nothing I could actually do, but I couldn't do anything like putting a passcode or signing in with an Apple ID or getting anything from the app store. But now that I've signed into this AirWatch Agent app, when I press the home button, what I'm going to see is that the app store is now available, as well as when I go into settings, there's more options now. So now there's that passcode setting I was referring to that wasn't there at the beginning. I can also sign in with my Apple ID up here, which I couldn't do before. So that's the idea of like check in and check out, or we'll call it student mode and teacher mode. Right now I have this thing completely unlocked because I used my employee number and password in the Agent app. All the restrictions on this device are removed. I can even remove apps now. So if I tap and hold them, you can see that all the apps are kind of wiggling and they have the X in the top left-hand corner. I can only remove them now because I am in teacher mode. But let's say now I'm ready to give this back to a student, I would want to make sure that I am signed out of this agent app, because you don't want them to have access to the App Store and downloading apps. You don't want them to put passcodes on the device, and you don't want them to maybe remove the apps that you've chosen to put on there already, right? So if I go back into the agent app, there is a logout button there, and I'll hit log out. And once that's logged out, now we're back at the login screen here. When I press the home button, what I should see is that the App Store will disappear. It's still there, but give it a second and it will disappear. No? Of course, it always gotta. Always throwing me. Oh, there it goes. Okay, boom. So now it's gone. Now it's back in a lockdown state. So all the restrictions are back in place. So if I go back into settings, I should see that the passcode setting is gone. I can't sign in with my Apple ID up at the top. And I can now hand this back to the student and feel confident. And also, they can't remove apps. So if I tap and hold it, because I've chosen to put these apps on there, they cannot remove them by doing the traditional tap and hold. Wait until the icons wiggle, and then click the X in the top left-hand corner. That X is now gone. So students should not be able to remove apps when the iPad is in student mode. So that was that's a good indication of a TDSB enrolled AirWatch iPad. One thing I wanted to show before we start moving into the console as well is I mentioned how to enroll in this morning's session. I'm not sure how familiar we are with the actual enrollment process, but more importantly, what I wanted to just show is the difference between enrollment of a TDSB owned iPad and a third party or donated iPad. So what we find a lot is that people will end up wiping their device and they say that, hey, I'm not getting prompted to enter my enrollment ID. So what do I mean by that? Let me show you. I'm going to launch the agent app again. I'm going to actually take off all the restrictions just so that I can get to the wipe part, because by default we don't allow students to wipe the device when it's in student mode, because that would be not good if they were easily able to wipe the device. So I got my employee number and password back in there. I'm going to log in, and I'm going to basically re-enroll this device, or wipe it and re-enroll it. So now I'm logged in. Yeah, that one's not in DP, so that one should show us a good example of what it looks like. So if I go into settings, and I'm going to go to general, and this is, by the way, if you're not aware of this as well, this is how you would wipe an iPad. If you go into settings and then general and then reset, you'll want to go to erase all contents and settings. The other reset and erase buttons do not wipe the device. It's particularly this erase all contents and settings. And this is only here because I signed into the AirWatch agent. If I hadn't done that, that option would not be available to me. But I'm going to erase this device, completely wiping it out, and now we see that it's going to have to go through the motions. So while this thing wipes, what I'm going to show you is a non-TDSB owned iPad, what happens when you get to the initial setup. So sometimes what we get is an iPad that was maybe perhaps donated to the school, or won through a grant, or won at a competition, or purchased from the Apple Store directly using like a petty cash card. Basically any means that your school had attained an iPad without going through the usual channels where you go through the SAP system and purchase it using the contracts that we have in the catalog. That iPad basically is almost like it's not considered to be owned by the TDSB, despite the fact that it may have been purchased or donated or whatever the case may be. If that iPad was purchased through any other way or obtained through any other way than the usual SAP system, what will happen when you go through the initial setup is you won't get that screen that'll ask you for enrollment. So what we'll see is side by side is that, while this one's wiping, that when we get to a certain point during the setup, come on, there we go. It's not going to ask me for my enrollment ID. So if I tap English and Canada, and then it asks me to choose the Wi-Fi, I'm going to choose TDSB Media Devices. You guys should be able to use TDSB Media Devices as well for your iPads. If Media Devices does not let you in, feel free to use TDSB-Wi-Fi. That should be a good fallback. It will ask you for your employee number and password. So it's gotten already to this screen with the location services, and it shouldn't have. It should have actually gone to another screen, which I'll actually show you on this one. So side by side, let's see if I can get these on the same frame. Let me pull this back. That fit? Yeah, that fits. Oh, let me get this guy out of here. So many iPads. All right, let me backstep here so that we're all on the same page. I'm gonna toggle this off. Boom, boom. Okay, so they're both wiped, right? On the left, we have a donated iPad or a non-TDSP purchased iPad, and on the right, we have a traditional iPad that that was purchased through the TDSP price book and SAP or whatever, right? So if we start the setup, they should be pretty similar. Obviously, it starts off choose your language and then select your country, Canada, and it's going to ask for the Wi-Fi once this one unfreezes. Oh, quick start. Oh, it's on a newer version, yeah. But the steps are still pretty much the same. I wish the brightness didn't go down. Oh, that's annoying. Okay. So right now it's asking me for the Wi-Fi on both of them. I'm going to choose TDSP media devices on this one and TDSP media devices on this one. Now, while we wait for the right one to catch up, so on the left iPad, you can see that it's asking me to enable location services. On the right iPad, it's saying it may take a few minutes to activate your iPad. But what's going to happen is it's going to say, in due time, come on. No. Sorry, I think our wireless network here is a little bit slow today because we have a lot of people in the building doing their PD sessions, so I'm just, come on. Well, I'll just talk over it while while it's waiting. Basically, the next part that's going to come up on the screen on the right is going to ask us for the enrollment ID, which is basically the meat and potatoes that makes it join the AirWatch environment. Right now, it's retrieving configuration. Come on. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. Here. Aha. Ha ha ha. Okay. So, the iPad on the right is now saying remote management, right? So, Toronto District School Board will automatically configure your iPad. This means that this iPad is owned by the TDSB, and no matter how many times you wipe it, you start it over, you try to blow it fresh, it will always come back to the Toronto District School Board and try to enroll in AirWatch because we have made it that way. We have forced it that way. All TDSB owned iPads will do this, right? But there are conditions where the iPad was donated or perhaps won through a grant, in which case during this part of the setup, it goes right to location services. And then if I actually continue through the setup, okay, create a passcode. No, I don't want to do that. Don't add a passcode. At no point during this setup will it ask me to enroll the iPad like this one has, right? So traditionally with AirWatch, how you would enroll the iPad is you would get to this screen here where it says remote management. Hit next and it'll ask you for an enrollment ID, and it's going to ask for a username and password. Basically, the username and the password are is your school's 4-digit trillion number. So in my case, we have a fake school here, so we're just using 9999. So it should be 4 numbers long. You type in the trillion number both for the username and the password. I'm going to do it again down here, 9999. And then I hit next. And what's going to happen is this iPad is now enrolling into AirWatch. And not only is it enrolling into AirWatch, but it's particularly putting it in my school's AirWatch environment so that when I sign into AirWatch, I'm going to see that this iPad is there. This iPad, however, because it is donated, or it didn't get to that part where it asked me for the enrollment, I actually have to add this one into AirWatch using a different method, assuming I want to do that. But I'm going to continue with the setup on this one, just so you can see that at no point is it going to ask me for the enrollment ID. It's asking me for an Apple ID. I'll actually go ahead and sign in with one because I'm going to have to download something anyways. So basically, if the iPad's donated, it's not going to automatically put itself into AirWatch. We have to manually put it into AirWatch. And how we do that is we go to the App Store, we find the AirWatch agent, download it, and then enroll. It's a bit of a pain and not super intuitive. But unfortunately, that's the only way. I just set that one. I think it's done. Just turn the brightness up on that one. So here we go. Okay, so I'm signing with an Apple ID. Again, this is the donated iPad. It hasn't asked me at any point to enter in my trillium number. So as far as Apple's concerned, this iPad doesn't belong to the Toronto District School Board. It's not in its system that's known as DEP, which stands for Device Enrollment Program. Um, if you have an iPad that is like this, and it does not ask you for that trillion number during the setup, I'm going to show you how we can put it into AirWatch so that we can manage it. But I will say that if your iPad is new enough to run version 11 or higher of iOS, and iOS is the operating system that the iPads run. If it's a hardware version that is high enough to run iOS 11 or higher, whether or not we actually purchase it through the traditional system, we can actually put it into DEP so that going forward it will automatically look like the other one. And as you can see with the other one, just real quick, it's now set up. It's done the setup, and right away it's just like what the whole benefit of what AirWatch is that it's going to start right away pulling in those different apps that we have assigned to it. So we can be more volatile with our iPads when they're in AirWatch. We can wipe them, and then hey, they're just going to come back with the same app. So, who cares, right? This one, however, not going into AirWatch automatically because I bought it with my own credit card. And if I choose finish up the setup here, don't use Siri, got it, don't share, yada yada yada. Welcome to iPad. Here we go. So now this iPad is done setting up. But as you can see, the background is this this waterfall, not the TDSB blue, right? What's that? It's a wave? I thought it was a waterfall. Oh yeah, it's a wave. Okay, it's a wave. That's usually a good indication that it's not TDSB iPad right away, and it's not going to start downloading the AirWatch agent right away. It's actually going to stay like this. It's like a consumer iPad because this iPad doesn't know that it belongs to the TDSB, whereas this one does, and you can see it automatically goes into AirWatch, gets the blue background, and starts downloading all the apps. This one not so much, but we can put it in AirWatch, and how we do that is we actually launch the App Store, and we can go looking for the AirWatch agent. It says allow the App Store to access your location while I use the app. Sure. So if I go into the setup family sharing, not now. If I go into the App Store, I can actually look up the AirWatch agent, AirWatch agent. Now at this point, you're going to need an Apple ID. Anytime you download something from the App Store, you're going to need an Apple ID. Every school should have an Apple ID. The Apple IDs usually look like the 4 digits of your school's trillium number, followed by mobile G. So what does that look like? Let me show you. Apple ID. So your Apple ID that we gave to all the schools prior to the existence of AirWatch. Let me just zoom in here. Should be your school's 4-digit trillion number. So in this case, my fake school here is going to be 9991. I know it said 9999, but in this one particular Apple ID case, it's 9991. It's going to be your school's trillion number, those 4 numbers, dash mobile G at tdsb.on.ca. That's your school's Apple ID, where this is the only thing that changes, this number here. The password, I cannot say it just because this this webinar is public. So somebody could actually end up, watching this and then having access. We don't want to do that. But if you do, you should know that your school has a default password for the Apple ID. We can reset the Apple ID at the client service desk if you don't know the password. And actually, your school's shared folder, I believe, under the office share, the school office share. Yes, there's an Apple. There should be PDF instructions in there that says that explains how to. Actually, I shouldn't open that. What am I doing? Minimize. Oh God, close it. Hopefully that doesn't load. Okay. Anyways, because I don't want to show it because it's actually going to show the password for the account. Oh God, it's doing it again. No. Right. So it'll actually. Come on. Okay. So it'll basically be your school's trillion number dash mobile G dot at tdsb.on.ca. Your principal, vice principal, and OA all have access to the school office share, where they can actually get the PDF instructions, which will show what the default password was for the Apple ID. It may have since been changed, but there are also reset instructions in there, which basically you can use security questions and answers to reset your Apple ID account. So I Actually, I'll leave this open because I want to show something about that later. But nonetheless, with the iPad, the reason I would jump to the Apple ID is because on this donated iPad, if I want to download and put it into AirWatch, I'm actually going to need my Apple ID to download the agent. Because if I search the AirWatch agent in the App Store, it's this first one right here. It says AirWatch agent, right? So I'm going to have to download that app because it did not automatically get this because, again, it wasn't in DEP. And I'm basically going to download this app, and I'm going to have to do the AirWatch enrollment manually. So what this looks like, it's done, and there's the agent. So I downloaded it manually, unlike the other one which had it already. Now I can launch the AirWatch agent, and it's going to ask me to sign up. It's going to say, how do I want to enroll? I'm going to use my email address, so I'm going to type in my email, tdsb.on.ca. Next. I will say also that they're between the manual enrollment and this one that I'm doing here, we'll call this manual enrollment. Between this one and the automatic enrollment that we saw with this one actually has more features. So the AirWatch has more control over this iPad and can do a lot more than can be done with this one. So, but I digress. That you can still enroll it. But so now it's asking me for my username and password. And just like the other one, we're going to enter in the school's trillium number. So 999 for me, and the username and the password are both the school trillium number. So I'm entering 9999999 for both. Okay. So when I hit next, it's going to enroll into my AirWatch environment. It's going to say, to enable your device, you'll be redirected to Safari. Sure, redirect and enable. It's going to bring me over here. And then it should prompt me to trust something. It says, this website is trying to open settings. Allow this configuration profile. Do you want to allow it? Allow. Okay, should take me over to settings. Here we go. So here's the install profile. So this is the magical profile that allows AirWatch to control this iPad. I'm going to hit install. Install. And once this is done, should go back. You can see how much of a pain this is already, right? I had to do the setup, sign in with an Apple ID, go to the App Store, find the AirWatch agent, download it versus, this one, which right away jumped right in and is already getting all my apps that I want. So I just want to finish this up so you guys can see, because this is one of the more common things. We do hear this a lot where people are like, hey, I wipe my device, but it's not asking me to enroll, which I thought it was what I wanted. So that might be the case for you. If you ever are wiping a device and you don't get the enrollment during the setup, it's because it was probably donated. So it says installing this profile will allow the administrator at blah, blah, blah to manage your iPad. Install. Trust. Oh, that didn't take long at all. Okay. So now, it should be enrolled. I'm just going to tap here if you're not proud to open this page in the agent. Cool. And done. Done, done, done. So now this iPad is enrolled in AirWatch. So what I'll see when I go to my AirWatch environment is this iPad, despite the fact that it was donated, or maybe perhaps I bought it with a petty cash card, it still should be able to enroll in AirWatch. And just like the other one before, you can see that it's asked me for the username and password. The restrictions should be on here. It may take a little bit for it to... Oh, is that one of the... Oh, yeah. Okay. So actually, maybe I should just bring this up here. So the different sites... CSDKB. I'm just going to jump over to our knowledge base here. This is the client service desk knowledge base, where we have an AirWatch section on the left-hand side. We actually show what non-TDSB iPads. Here's the article here. Oh, you put it there? Oh, okay. There. So there's a little chart here that shows what the difference is between a non-TDSB purchased iPad, like the different things that can be done versus one that was TDSB purchased. You can see all the check marks indicate something that a TDSB purchased iPad can do versus the one on the right. There are some things that it cannot do. And one of the ones right here right at the top says hide the App Store icon. So that restriction that prevents students from adding stuff in to the App Store cannot be done with this manual enrollment here. So it's not gonna get rid of that app there. But what it will, sorry, but what it will do is it's still gonna install all my pre-configured apps. So you can see Chrome's coming in. We're probably gonna get more as we wait. Just like this one had Google Chrome come in, this one's gonna have all these same apps here come in as well. Oh right, yeah. And one other thing is that when you're getting apps appearing on this screen, on a non-TDSB iPad, I think here's what's gonna happen. You have to confirm every single one. So it's gonna keep saying app installation. Toronto Street School Board is about to install managed app, blah blah blah, and you basically have to click install. So for every single app it pushes down, I have to do that. Very annoying. Unfortunately, that's really the only thing that can be done with an iPad that was not purchased by the TDSB is that we have to do this manual enrollment like this, and all the apps come in, and we have to confirm each one. So it's kind of crummy in that sense that it's kind of a lot more work to get this thing enrolled, and we can push apps, but we don't get the full feature set that we see here. But that's why I wanted to mention this, though, and the reason I brought this up to begin with and made a point of this is that if your iPad can support version iOS 11 or greater, even if it's donated, we can then put in a DEP. We don't need to. It doesn't have to be, TDSB purchase. We have a method of going through that. So you can see it's harassing me for every single installation it wants to do. There's another one. There's another one. I'm pretty sure there's only a few more. I'm gonna tap settings. So you can find out what version you're using by going to settings, general, and then about, and you'll see the version of iOS right there where it says version. In this case, this is 10.33, which means this iPad I could not put it in DEP. I will always have to re-enroll it because it's not 11 or higher. If your iPad is 11 or higher and it's doing this kind of weird behavior where I have to do the manual enrollment, then you can let us know. We can put that thing in DEP or the system that'll let it automatically enroll like this one. Okay, so that's that. I just wanted to be clear between the difference between a what we consider a non-TDSB iPad um, and a TDSB owned iPad, so you can see them side by side, right? Same behavior. They get in the same apps. They're both in AirWatch. I'll be able to pull them up both in AirWatch, but one of them is going to have far less features, including the actual wallpaper. It's going to stay as that wave. So you can see here one of the things that won't do is the standard TDSB wallpaper. Oh, and clearing passcodes. Yeah, well, we don't put passcodes on them anyways, right? Anyways. Okay, so that I hope that's abundantly clear. Does anyone have any questions at this point about what's enrollment? What am I talking about? What's the difference between the iPad on the left and the iPad on the right? Just want to make sure I didn't lose anybody in that. So your school actually might, if you have some iPads and you have some that are already enrolled, they might look like the one on the left in that they don't have the TDSB background, but it could just be that you haven't enrolled them yet, which is fine. Because you still may wipe them and still see that they do the enrollment screen like we saw on the one on the right. Anyways, that's that. I'm going to show you. So now, with that all being said, that was more the device side of things. So that's what the iPads look like, and you can see you already got a chance to see the behavior of how AirWatch immediately right away started, deploying apps to it. So how do we get those apps actually on there? Well, first and foremost, we need to log into the AirWatch web console. So the AirWatch web console is located in the school shared folder on the desktop. So in this case, you can log in from anywhere on the web, not just within the TDSB. It is a cloud-based application. So if you're anywhere on the internet, you don't have to be within the TDSB building. You can open up the link to AirWatch and sign in and start managing your iPads from there. There's no browser limitation as far as I know. You can use Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox. One thing you can't do is manage AirWatch from the iPad itself. So if you try to go to the AirWatch management portal from the iPad, it won't load. But other than that, any other computer or device should be able to access the AirWatch management console. There is a username format. The reason I put that there, I'll show you in just a bit. And also there is a 4-digit PIN on first login. So when you first sign in. So the link is right here. https://cn239. That's a mouthful. So we don't expect you to remember that. There's actually a desktop shortcut. So, or not desktop shortcut, rather, but a shortcut in the school shared folder. So on your every TDSB desktop should have their school's shared folder on the desktop here. In this case, mine says LAS Test Schools. Yours will just say your school name. And when you click in there, you'll see a bunch of shortcuts that we put in there. This is where we put Markbook and, you know, your school student drop-off folders, my info. But for AirWatch, we've added an AirWatch link there. So you guys should actually all be able to see the AirWatch link, so we can actually log into AirWatch and manage those iPads. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to click the AirWatch link, and it opened off screen, of course. There we go. Whoop. So this is what you should see when you log into the AirWatch webpage. Why is it doing that? Sorry guys, bear with me. It's gonna fix the zoom. Okay. The image isn't loading in the top left-hand corner. That's strange. Oh, because I'm already signed in. Ignore everything I'm doing. You didn't see this. I'm gonna log out. Okay. Alright, so when you launch the shortcut, this is the AirWatch login screen. So all the magic that happens on the device takes place because on the devices here, all these apps get added on here by managing the iPads through this web console. So all these iPads should show up in my web console when I sign in, and that's where I deploy all the apps. So I'm going to sign in here, and like I said, unfortunately, it seems like a large majority don't have access to AirWatch, except for I think 1 or 2 users. So at this point, you're going to have to just watch me and follow along because you will not be able to log in, but you may be able to take something away with this because I'm actually going to walk you through how to actually use AirWatch and cover some of the more common issues that we see come up. But at this point, we can log in using our employee number and password. So the username is our TDSB employee number, but actually I should show you that I don't just type in my employee number. I actually have to put in TDSB and then a backslash, not a forward slash, but a backslash. TDSB backslash, and then my employee number, and then my current network password. So the same one you use to log into the computers, same one you use to check your emails. That's the password that you're going to use for this login here. The TDSB does not have to be case sensitive. It doesn't have to be uppercase. It can be like that. It can be all lowercase. It doesn't matter. As long as you have TDSB backslash and then your employee number, you should be able to log into the AirWatch web console. So I'm going to log in now. I'm just going to actually zoom out a bit now. I don't need to be this zoomed in. One more. Okay. So I got my employee number, or TDSB backslash my employee number, and then my current network password. I click login. And what should happen is, oh, that's a bad example because it took me into my help desk role. You should see the dashboard. Actually, if this is your first time logging in, which many of you may not be able to log in at all, but if, let's say Jacqueline, for example, this is the first time she's logging in, what you may see is that it prompts you for a terms of agreement that you're going to accept. So it's a lot of jargon. You can just click accept to that. And then it's going to ask you to create a 4-digit PIN code. This 4-digit PIN code is used when you want to wipe an iPad. So every time you want to wipe an iPad from the AirWatch web console, it's going to ask you to type in this 4-digit PIN code, and it's just to make sure that you didn't do that accidentally. So why don't I show you that? Let me just pop over back to AirWatch. Over here. So let's say I'm going to breeze past this dashboard part here. I'm just going to go to a list of my iPads. So these iPads that I actually have to the left of me are all shown here in the AirWatch web console. So these two, for example, are actually showing here. Which one is which is I'll explain in just a moment. But let's say I wanted to wipe the iPad on my left. right? Or sorry, my right. I'm gonna do the one on the right. If I want to wipe the one on my right, which I know to be this one, I'm gonna click the iPad here, and then if I go into more actions, and then device wipe, which is where I would wipe the device, it's gonna ask me for that 4-digit PIN code. So when I first log in, it asks me to create that 4-digit PIN code. The only time you're going to use that 4-digit PIN code is if you want to wipe a device from the AirWatch web console. And it's just to make sure that I don't do it accidentally. So if I came in here, I didn't wipe, and maybe that's important stuff on there, um, you know, I would want to make sure that this would stop me, right? So now, but if I do want to wipe the device, I can enter my PIN code in here, and then what will happen is the iPad will start wiping. So you can see the one on the right is now wiping, and I did that from the AirWatch web console. I forced it to do that from the AirWatch web console. And if you ever forget your passcode, you can actually reset your passcode to something else. So let's say I signed in, I created my passcode, and then 2 days later I forgot what it was. In the top right-hand corner, I can go into, click my employee number up here, and I'll go to Manage Account Settings. And then there's a tab here for security, which is where my PIN code is. It says you can reset your security pin. So basically what I do is when I click this reset button, it logs me out. So when it logs me out, the next time I log in, it's going to force me to create a new PIN code. So now I'm logged out again. I'm going to sign in again. Again, TDSB / employee number. And then my password. Oops. And now when I log in, it's asking me to create a new one. So if I do happen to forget that PIN code, it's not a problem. It's like 2-3 steps to reset it, and I can create a new PIN code in here again. Again, it only has to be 4 digits long. And the only time you're going to use that is if you wipe an iPad, as I just did. So once you've gotten past that, we logged into the web console using our employee number and password. We accept the terms of agreement. We created our 4-digit PIN code. I showed you how to actually change your PIN code if you forget what it is. Again, it's not super important to remember that PIN code. You can always change it at any time you want. It's just under Manage Account Settings and then the Security tab, and then you can create a new one. But once you're in here, this is usually the first screen that you see once you log into AirWatch, and this is a dashboard. It's just basically like a graphical overview of your environment. I'll show you, how many devices do you have. In this case, it shows I have 4. How many of them have a passcode on them? So far, none of them do. The last seen breakdown will tell you the last time that device was shown to AirWatch. It means the last time that AirWatch was online, connected to the network, and talking to AirWatch. So if I'm looking at this graph, it shows me here that last seen breakdown, I got 3 devices that have been seen in the past 0 to 3 days, which is good. I want my iPads to be checking in regularly to AirWatch. However, there's one here that says it hasn't been seen in greater than 31 days. So that iPad has not spoken to AirWatch in 31 days. That might be a cause for concern. Why? Is it not connected to the network? Is it stolen? Is it gone? Is it not in my possession? What's going on with that? I can actually click all the graphs here, and they'll be interactive. They'll take me over to what it is that they're referring to. So let's say in the case of this one, where it shows I have an iPad here that hasn't been seen in greater than 31 days. I can actually click this bar, and it's going to take me over to my list of devices and show me which one it's referring to. So it automatically filtered that iPad out, and it says, hey, you haven't seen this one in 31 days, or 36 days in this case. And I can see that last seen value over here, this red value, the last seen. So the last seen does tell you a lot, and it can be something to be, I don't want to say worried about, but like something to think about. If you, for example, if I had tried to install an app on this iPad and it doesn't get it, and I look over here and I see that it's last seen 36 days ago, and I tried to install an app yesterday and the day before and nothing happened, well, that just means that this iPad has not talked to AirWatch in 36 days. So you would actually have to go find that iPad and figure out what's going on with it. Sometimes it's just not connected to the Wi-Fi. Sometimes it wasn't enrolled properly. So what do I mean by that? So a lot of times what happens, and maybe I can even simulate it. So this one shows it hasn't been seen in 36 days. Let's say I got an iPad here, so I wiped this one in the console, and now we're back on the setup screen. And by now, it should be pretty clear that, it's pretty quick to enroll this device. So if I want to get this iPad right back into AirWatch, do the setup, English, Canada, okay, choose the Wi-Fi. I'm going to choose TDSB media devices. It's going to take me to that screen, ask me to enter in my enrollment ID. Okay, so let's say, for example, that you guys chose field services, or maybe you guys have decided to enroll your iPads yourself. When you're enrolling your iPads, it is important that you let it sort of finish. You let it think, right? So for example, let's say I'm blazing through this install. It's saying remote management. It's not going to configure your iPad. Okay, next. And then it asks me for my username and password. And I do 9999 and 9999 and next. So let's say, here we go. So it says access the doc from anywhere. So say I did the enrollment like that, and I'm like, okay, well, it's done. I'm not even going to, I lock the screen and put it away in a closet somewhere, right? If I just do this and lock it and put it away and put it in a closet somewhere, when you turn off the when you turn off the iPad, or rather put it to sleep, the iPads by default will actually turn the wireless card to sleep, and that is to actually conserve its battery. So with this thing idle like this, if hopefully I can simulate it. I'm not going to use this one anymore. I'm not going to turn it on for a while, just so you can see. If I just enrolled it and then left it to its own devices and just sort of put it away somewhere, it may not have actually finished its enrollment, and it actually will show, 36 days, and that it was never talking to it. So if you find an iPad that's showing a high last seen value, and then you go and you look at it and there's just it doesn't look right, like maybe the background will actually be the waterfall, um, then I would pick up that device and I would wipe it again and do the enrollment again. But first and foremost, just check to see that it's connected to the wireless. So you can just go into settings and Wi-Fi and make sure that it has a network connection. So that is the dashboard, which, as you saw, kind of shows me all these graphs. But I can actually just go into the list view here. I'll take off this filter and collapse that. So the list view basically just shows you a list of your iPads in a way that you can actually see them. So it'll show me, for example, this one, it's running 11.2.5. It's an iPad 5th generation. All these different iPads here are showing here because of that enrollment process. So as you saw, when I was doing the setup, it asked me for that Trillium number, that username and password, and I entered in quadruple 9 for the username and quadruple 9 for the password. It's because I typed in that value that it knows to come in here. See that 999 value up there? That's my school's Trillium number, therefore it knows that iPad belongs to me, and it's going to show up in this list. So I have all my iPads showing up here in this list view. So from here, you can actually shift your focus from the list view to the details view by clicking the iPad name, and then you can come in here, and then there's different actions you can take on the iPads themselves. So I can come into more actions. As you saw, I can wipe the device by doing the device wipe, which will force it to wipe. I can clear the passcode on the device if it has a passcode. I can enable lost mode. I'll show you. I think I'll come back and show you lost mode later, because I just want to kind of skip past this and get to the meat and potatoes of adding the apps. And then we'll cover like the most common issues that we see. So one thing I need to be aware of here is that you can see that these iPads are coming in with different garbledy-gook names, which are not meaningful to me. Your school should probably already have your iPads labeled with a labeling convention that makes sense to you. So the back of our iPads, for example, here at the client service desk, are all labeled here so that we know physically what they look like here and what they look like in AirWatch should match up. So that's something that your school should be doing, is hopefully you have your iPads labeled on the back that'll say like iPad number 4 or iPad number 3. And then that way what we'll do is that we can rename them in AirWatch so that the names match up. So in the case of this iPad that I have here, let me just make sure. Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna wanted to change the name so I can show you. So this one's showing the name here as oh, by the way, let me show you how to get to the name. So it's under settings. So I can change the name of this iPad by going to settings, general, and then about, and then I can rename the iPad here. So whatever name I put here will actually show up in AirWatch. Oh, thanks, Demos. I didn't even notice. Yeah, I think my thighs pinched the mute button. Okay, we're back. Now I'm wondering how much was not heard. Okay. So basically, what I was saying is that whatever name you set on the iPad, so under settings, general, and then about, will reflect here. Apple has not provided the ability for AirWatch to make that lock down to teachers only. So in the event, a student could actually pick up the iPad and go into settings, general, and about, and change the name to whatever they want. And we've actually seen some pretty silly names show up. Unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done about that. Your only option really is to rename it back to what it originally was. So just, if you see the name look different, pick it up, flip it around, and see what it's labeled as, and rename it again to what it's supposed to be. What I'm actually going to show later is how to export a list of your iPads. So what you can do is, if you have your iPad names all set up the way that you want, you can actually export a list, and then you'll have something that you can reflect back on. Actually, you know what? I'll just show that now. I'm going to show that now. All right. So let's say, let me just rename all my devices here. So I still have two more that have funny names. So I can rename it on the iPad itself by going to settings, general, and about, or I can actually rename them from the AirWatch console. One of the caveats about renaming it from the AirWatch web console is that it is a little bit difficult to find out which iPad is which. So say, for example, I don't have access to actually pick up these iPads because they're already distributed across the room, right? But I have, let's say, hopefully you have a list of serial numbers that say that who belongs to that. So let's imagine that this first iPad here is given to the grade 2 classroom, and it is called iPad number 3. And this is the iPad number, and this is the iPad here. If I have the serial number with me, so settings, general, and then about, the serial number is listed under settings, general, and about. If I go back to the web console, I can look at this list and I can say, well, I don't know which one that is because, it hasn't been named yet. It's got to be one of these two gobbledygook ones, but I don't know which one it is. I can actually search for the serial number up here in the top right-hand corner, and it will filter down this list for that one. So if you happen to already know what the serial number is, and maybe you don't have physical access to that device, you can do that. So let's just type in the serial number: GCHVJEQ 4H, this is fun, LF9. Enter. It took my giant list, filtered it all the way down, and now I know that that iPad is indeed the one that I'm looking at to the left of me. This guy here, because the serial numbers match up. So if I didn't have access to actually physically grab this iPad and change the name up here, I can actually change it from the AirWatch web console. So let's say now that I know, okay, I have that list, I'm gonna to rename it. I click the pencil here next to the iPad name. Click that pencil. It's gonna say, what do you want to give it? Friendly name, certainly not this. I'm gonna call it, what did I say? Should have wrote down. So grade 2, right? Grade 2 iPad number 3, right? And I'm also going to check this set friendly name as device name. And what this will do is this will actually not only change the name in AirWatch, but it will force it to change here as well. So right now it just says iPad, right? And then I'm going to press the home button here. I'm going to toggle back here, and I'm going to click set friendly name as device name. And now I'm going to save it. And what should happen is that this iPad, let me toggle back. This iPad, when I go back in to settings, general, and about, oh, okay, I'd already got it. Grade 2 iPad number 3. So that's how I can rename it from the device side. So you can either come in, rename it here, and it'll push over to AirWatch, which is the more preferred way. But if you don't have access to actually have the iPad physically in your hand to rename it, you can do it from the AirWatch web console. Find the iPad, which is the tedious part because you got to know the serial number or something unique about it. Find the iPad and rename it from the console. No worries, Vesna. So with that, I'm just going to finish renaming my devices here so I got more of a realistic look. This one we'll say is just iPad. Sorry, we'll say this is grade 1 as well. iPad number 2. And this iPad, doesn't really matter what I name this iPad, to be honest, because again, it hasn't been seen in 36 days, which means if I try to tell it to do something, it's probably not going to get it. So grade 3 iPad, I don't know, 9. Okay, so now I've got a list. What's this? An error has occurred. This error has automatically been saved for further analysis. Okay. Oh, right. Okay, so this one, it won't let me rename it because it's unenrolled. So there's an iPad that's somewhere out there that's in limbo. It's waiting to be enrolled, and it was last enrolled here. That's why it's still showing here. So this will disappear when I find that iPad and enroll it somewhere else, or enroll it back into here. But right now it's kind of in limbo. Not too big of a concern. For me at least. For you guys it might be a concern. If you're looking at a list of your iPads and you see one of them is showing unenrolled, I would go investigate that, try to figure out what's going on with that iPad. So let's say, for example, now I have this all set up the way that I like it. I've renamed all my iPads, and I'm ready to go. You can actually get an export of this list so that, like I said, a student can actually go onto each iPad and change the name, and there's no restriction, unfortunately, that'll allow us to fix that. Nothing's stopping me from coming in here and changing the name from iPad number 3 to, like, iPad number 101, right? I can change the name here. It's not going to show here right away, but eventually the name will propagate over. If I want to figure out which iPad got renamed, I can export the list. Oops. So if I already like my settings the way it is, and I want to keep a copy of this so that if somebody starts messing with my names or I need to wipe some devices, I can go back and look at my sheet. And how I do that is I click this little button over here in the top right-hand corner that says Export. And it says your file is being exported. Once it is complete, it will be available for download on the exports page. You can view the status of your export on the exports page, and there's a link here. So I can click that. It'll take me to the export page. It shows that the status is in queue. So right now it's working on building that export out. I'm just going to hit refresh, and inevitably what happens is it'll start saying processing, and then after processing it'll let me download it. It can take a little bit of time though, especially when I'm hammering it with refreshes. Let me refresh the page. Okay, so it still shows in queue. I'm gonna give that a little bit of time because sometimes, especially if you got a lot of iPads, it can take a while for the export to come out. It shouldn't take too long though. Like usually you refresh it a few times and eventually the export's ready. It's being a little bit slow, but maybe that's just a slow day for AirWatch. That export button, this guy right here, is actually on multiple screens throughout AirWatch that you may find useful. So um, right now I'm exporting a list of my iPads, which you'll see will give me a whole whack ton of information that I can use and store and keep around as far as keeping a spreadsheet so that I have something to always reference. Um, where's that export? Here we go. Let's see if it's ready. Sorry, now I'm just getting impatient. Okay, so now it's showing processing. So it looks like in due time, it's going to give me the option to download it. But that export button is actually available on multiple screens throughout AirWatch. And whenever you see that export button, it means you can take what you're looking at and export it into a spreadsheet, which is good for a list of your iPads. Because then that way what you'll see is on this spreadsheet it'll have your iPad names, the friendly name you gave it, the serial number, the model number. Uh, Here we go. It's complete. So I'm going to click the complete button. It's going to download it. It's going to download as a zip file. So there it is in my downloads folder. I'm just going to extract it by right clicking and going to extract all. And it's going to walk me through extract, next. Okay, so here it is. Here's the Excel file of my list that I exported. So when I open this up, it's going to open up with Excel and it's going to give me an actual exported list of all my iPads. And it's going to be basically gives me a snapshot of my devices in time. So I'm just going to space these columns out a bit so we can see it. I'm going to take the column name and bold it and center it and maybe give it a back color so it stands out better. And also, so now I can actually see the different column names that comes here. So I can see that I actually now have a list of all my iPads. These are the names that I gave my iPads. And now I have a saved copy of it. So in the future, if a student goes onto the iPad and changes the name on me, and then I'm looking, it comes in here, changes it to iPad 101 or whatever, right? And then I go back to my list and I'm like, oh, darn, I don't remember which one iPad 101 is. We can actually look it up. So we know that that used to be iPad number 3. I can look for the serial number on this spreadsheet. I'm actually going to delete some useless columns here. I don't need the ownership or the username or the first name or the last name or the email. Those are all values that don't mean anything to me. Platform is Apple. I don't need that because they're all iPads. The OS will show me the version number, so that's good. I'll keep that. I like that. Model, the model of the iPad, that's good. I'll keep that. Phone number, there's no phone number. Tags, don't need that. Enrollment, I'm going to delete it. Compliance status, maybe, but I don't need it. I just want this for keeping an inventory. Display name, nope. Management, don't need that. Asset number, don't need that. Serial number, I'm going to want that. IMEI, it's not a phone, there's no IMEI, don't need that, that. You don't really need a lot of these columns, to be honest. The Wi-Fi IP address I don't really need. The Wi-Fi MAC address I would hold on to because that is another unique way of identifying the device, and it also helps us troubleshoot wireless login. So now I got a good spreadsheet here with some details that I might want for my iPad. So I've exported this list from AirWatch, and now I have a spreadsheet copy of it. So if later down the road a student, changes the iPad name and I forget which one it is, I can actually come back in here and say, well, when I first set this up and I made this spreadsheet, that was iPad grade 1 iPad number 2, and that was for serial number DMPK. So I can come in here, copy that, go back over to AirWatch, find my device by pasting it in here. And then, well, that wasn't the one that I changed, but I hope you get the idea. Is that you can now have a list of iPads here, which is just even good. Just having it in Excel alone is good for data manipulation. And if you ever need like help from the client service desk. You know, we usually ask you for the serial number, and it's not because we want to be annoying. It's actually because it helps us uniquely identify the device. If we can't uniquely identify the device, it really hinders our ability to figure out what's going on. But this spreadsheet now gives me a workable list of my iPads, and then I could even, you know, say designate. Maybe let's say I haven't even set up the names yet. I could get them all into AirWatch first, even before I've named them. So let's say they were all just called iPad, 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 iPad. I could start off with my spreadsheet and then sort of build my names out in here so I know how I want it to look. So I know, and maybe this belongs to this teacher, and I want to call it teacher name dash iPad number 2. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of things you could probably think of as far as using a spreadsheet goes to keep a copy of your devices in a list format, but that is one thing I wanted to show you. So we saw that we can come in here, we can rename our iPads, we can give them names that are meaningful to us, and it is very important that we give them these kind of names here because we're actually going to control them pretty granularly with the way that we set up the group. So these names help should match up with how they actually look on the iPad, and as well when I go to build out my groups and decide what apps goes on this iPad and what apps goes on that iPad, will help me because I have renamed them this way. So that was list view. We renamed them all. I can go into each one and I can look at the details view. There's some stuff to see here on the details view, just, you know, some general info. So basically what happens when you're in list view is you're looking at a list of your iPads, and when you click an individual iPad, you shift your focus to just that one iPad. So now we're looking at the details of this particular device. A lot of the stuff you can see on the same page, like, you know, the last seen value, that was on this first page. But this is where you kind of see the more details over here, like the serial number of the iPad. I can even see the battery, how much storage is on there. You know, I have 24 gigabytes available out of 27. Physical memory, battery level, etc., etc. Um, Also on here is the apps tab. So despite the showing apps, this is not where you deploy the apps, but rather this is where you can see what apps have been deployed. Um, Hopefully I can talk through this page without confusing you, but grade 1 iPad 6, which one is that? Okay, so I'm going to show you that, so all these apps have been deployed to my iPad by adding the apps through the apps and books tab over here. But what I can do, and I don't add apps from here, I can't really add any apps from here, but I can either force reinstall an app from the apps tab, or I can force remove an app from one particular iPad. So because I'm on the details view, I'm looking at one particular iPad, in this case grade 1 iPad number 6. When I go to the apps tab, it just shows me all the things that I've already pre-configured. Now I'm going to show you how to configure them later, but I just want to quickly show you that out of the apps that I've already configured this iPad to have, I can just decide on a whim, I just want to take it off this one device. So if I go back to my iPad, I think this one is, which one is this? That's the one I renamed. I think iPad 101. Yeah, it hasn't changed here anyway, so, okay. Let me just change that back. iPad number 6 so I don't get confused. Okay. Alright, so if I'm looking at the apps that are already installed on this iPad, again, these were all, I swear the brightness keeps going back down. There you go. So these are the apps that automatically installed when I put this device in AirWatch. I configured these apps to be there to deploy automatically. However, if I want to, for whatever reason, deploy an app to this iPad, or sorry, remove an app because I no longer have a need for it, and I've, you know, let's say that this is now, I can't think of a really a great reason why, but you can do it from the apps tab. So I can look at this iPad and I can say, you know what, this iPad doesn't need Scratch Junior anymore. I can select that app from this apps tab and remove it, and I can click OK. So I haven't removed it from all iPads because I didn't want to do that, but I have removed it from this particular iPad. Eventually it should go away. I'm just making sure it's connected to the network, okay? Maybe it's this one. Yeah, it was this one. Right? Yeah, I think, because this one had Scratch Junior. Okay, sorry, I'm getting my iPads confused. This one had Scratch Junior. Let me do that again. Let's find another app. Twitter. Right. Okay. So I've selected Twitter. Oh, you can't see it. I didn't toggle back. Here we go. So I've gone back to the apps tab here. Sorry, I got the two iPads confused. This is the iPad that I removed Scratch Junior from. So just to show you again, so I'm not a liar, I'm selecting Twitter here, and it shows a green check mark, meaning it is installed and managed. Um, and now when I click remove, what should happen is I force remove it off just that particular iPad. So now if I go back to this iPad here, the Twitter app is now gone. And I can, of course, if I want to put it back, I can just go in reverse, right? So I can say, you know what, I changed my mind. Actually, I actually do need Scratch Junior on there. I can tap Scratch Junior, tap install, hit OK, and what it should do is put Scratch Junior back on there. And there it goes. So it's installing. So you can actually like force remove an app from a particular iPad or force reinstall. In fact, if I select an app that's already installed and hit install, it'll just remove it and reinstall it. Sometimes it's good for apps that maybe need a good push. For some reason you tried to deploy it and they didn't go right away. You can come in here, select the app, and force it to install again, and it will force reinstall it. But again, we don't. So I didn't get the option of putting new apps on this screen. These are all apps that I have already previously decided need to go on this iPad, and I can just make a one-off scenario and remove it from here. Or if that particular iPad is having a problem with that app, I can, in a one-off scenario, remove it and reinstall it from here. I hope that makes sense, because I'm going to show you how to deploy it to multiple iPads in just a second. So that's the Apps tab. There is the Location tab, which will show you where the iPad was last located. In this case, there we are, One Civic Center. You may not see this on your iPad if you don't have location services turned on. So every iPad will need to have location services turned on in order for that feature to work. We cannot force it on through AirWatch. That was a decision I believe that was either made or not allowed. I don't recall. What's that? Privacy? Yeah. I think by default we didn't want. I'm not sure if it was that we couldn't or that we chose not to. I think that was because we chose not to. Because if an iPad, for example, gets taken off premises and it reveals where maybe a teacher lives or something like that, that's not good. Or maybe perhaps where a student lives or a student is going through the day. You just don't want to track your students. But you can in fact turn it on if you do need it. And basically how we do that is we go into settings, and on the left hand side we scroll down to privacy, and location services needs to be turned on. In this case, location services is already turned on here. So because I have location services turned on, when I actually go into AirWatch, I can actually get this map data, and it'll show me where that iPad was last seen. That's the Location tab. There is the More Actions option in the top right-hand corner. Again, I can wipe the device. I can even update it if there's an iOS version available. In this case, there isn't one, so I don't really have anything to show you with that. You can enable lost mode. I showed this on the morning session. I think I'll just show it again. So lost mode is in the event that you lose an iPad and you want to retrieve it. Basically, you can put a message on the iPad saying, like, this iPad is missing. Please return to Mr. Silva. And then I can put a contact phone number here so they know how to reach me if they find my iPad. Now let's send that. And now when I toggle back over to my iPad, it'll basically say that this iPad is lost. And the iPad is effectively unusable. You can't do anything. I can press the home button. I can try to swipe. Nothing happens. The only thing that works, I believe, is the power button. Yeah, but it doesn't let you go past the screen. You're effectively locked on the screen. Now, when I finally get my iPad back, I can then, if somebody calls me or maybe they pick it up and they go, oh, he's missing it, and then they go and return it to me, I can then disable the lost mode and make it usable again. So I'll refresh this page, and in the top right hand corner I'll go to More Actions, and now my Enable Lost Mode is now showing Disable Lost Mode. Just toggle that, and it's actually going to undo that change that I've just done. So if I go back over to my iPad, you'll see that it shows that the iPad is now located. And I can now proceed from here by clicking the Continue button. And now my iPad is once again usable. So there's a bunch of little features up there in the More Actions. Feel free to play around with them. Those are the ones that you probably will use the most. Is the iOS update. You force the device to update. Device wipe. I can wipe the device. I can disable lost mode, or sorry, enable lost mode and disable it. You can shut down the device. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but there's also you can clear the passcode on the device. Now there are no passcodes on the device by default, but as you may have noticed, the TDSB has recently gotten new smartphones. So all the administrative staff now have either an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy S8. Both of those phones are actually also in AirWatch. So even though you guys will be using it for managing iPads, we also actually use it to manage all the new smartphones. And part of having the smartphone is that we have a device passcode put on those phones so that if somebody picks it up, they can't read all these confidential TDSB emails. We actually use AirWatch to remove the passcodes from the device if you forget it. So that is something you can do with your iPads as well if you manage to put if you manage to put a passcode on the iPad. So if you put a passcode on the iPad, you can actually remove it with AirWatch. And other than that, there's really not much here to see other than details view. So that's all the devices tab. So under devices, we got our dashboard, pretty little graphs, awesome. We got our list view, a list of all of our iPads. Loading, loading, loading. Keep that wheel on, loading. There we go. Got a list of all our iPads. And then the last step is the the details view, where I now go from the list to looking at one. Now I'm going to move over to groups and settings. I'm going to jump past apps and books because we got to group our iPads before we add the apps to them. So to make your experience with AirWatch more granular, we're going to basically group our iPads, and this is what we recommend. So you'll see it when I switch over to the group settings. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what are called smart groups. So go to groups and settings, groups, assignment groups. Ignore the organization groups. We can't get rid of that, but the assignment groups is where you want to go. And over here I see a list of all the different smart groups that are in my environment. So these groups are like logical groups where I can put my iPads in. So as you saw, I have 4 iPads in my environment. You guys will probably have more. You can just imagine in your brain to scale that up and what that would look like. So I've already pre-created all these different iPad groups. So for example, I have grade 1 iPads, grade 2 iPads, grade 3 iPads. And what I do is I will then take my iPads and put them into these groups. So that is why it was so important for us to name our iPads something that made sense to us when we were looking at it. So for example, I have 2 of my iPads are called grade 1 iPad number 6, grade iPad number 3. So now when I come to look at my group, I can say, okay, well, grade 1 iPad number 6 and 3 obviously go in the grade 1 iPads group. So I can come in here and add them in. Sorry. So these are all the groups that I've created here. I'm going to create a new one so you guys can see how that process looks. So I got grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, JK. I got the Android all because we can put Android devices in AirWatch as well. And we have the iPads all group. Every school by default has an iPads all group. We put this group in every single one of your school environments. And by default, every iPad is a member of the iPads all group. So if you don't want to spend too much time messing around with AirWatch and you just want, you know what, these are the apps that I have. These are the apps that I want. I don't care. I just want them on all my iPads and be done with it. We can use this group. It'll make your life a lot simpler in that sense. So basically every iPad is a member of that group. But I can go a step further and group them down more. So I'm gonna create a new one first. So I'm gonna click this big. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should mention that. Sorry, it doesn't have to be by grade. So I've decided, grade 1 iPads, grade 2 iPads. It doesn't have to be by grade. If it can be however you guys use your iPads in your school. So for example, maybe you have a robotics program. Yeah, and you want to create a group that is called robotics apps. So whenever I put a device in the robotics apps group, it will get all those robotics apps that we have. So I use the grade just because it's probably the easiest one to conceptualize. But you know what? Let's do that. Let's make a robotics app group. So I'm going to go to Add Smart Group, and I'm going to create a brand new smart group. Now, by default, when you come into the Add a Smart Group window, it's going to say choose a type up here, select criteria. We want to get off this page right away because this basically makes the group based on criteria of the device, which we're not going to do. We're going to manually put our devices in here. because we don't want it to be based on, what model is it, what version is it running. That means nothing to us. So when we come in to add a smart group, be cognizant it by default comes here. We don't want it to come here. We're not going to be doing it based on criteria. We're going to go to devices or groups, and we're going to make our own list. So select devices or users. It's going to say, hey, by switching, you're going to lose everything you did. That's totally fine. We haven't done anything. So I'm going to click OK. All right. So now we're ready to build out our group. So in the top right-hand corner where it says name, we're going to give it the name of the robotics app. So we're going to call this robotics apps. And now we're going to choose some devices. So I'm going to say grade 1 iPad 6. Sorry, I should just mention, then I set the name of the group up here, and then over here, when I put my cursor in this field, let me close that out. When I put my cursor in this field, a drop-down menu appears of all the list of my all my iPads. Now you can imagine if I hadn't renamed my iPads, and I got to this point, and all it said was iPad, 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 it would be a nightmare. I wouldn't be able to know which one actually needs the robotics apps. So because I took that extra step and I renamed all my iPads, and I've now made my life managing this going forward a lot easier. So now I can say, well, I know that the grade 1 iPad number 6 is in the robotics. It's going to be in the robotics program. I can select that app, or sorry, that iPad, and click add. And what it's going to do, it's going to move it over to the other side here. And I'm just going to leave it as that one app for now for the sake of demonstration. I could have added it to these two as well, but I'm not. I'm just going to leave this one iPad is going to be part of the robotics apps. Now, I haven't added any apps to this iPad yet. All I did was say that that iPad is part of the robotics apps group. So now later, I can then say all these apps are applied to the robotics apps group. I hope that makes sense. I know it can be a little bit confusing, but you group your iPads into groups, and then you apply apps to the groups. So iPads go in the groups, apps get applied to the groups. So I have all these ones that I've set up here. Again, the iPads all group by default contains all my iPads, but I've now created this robotics apps group here, and I have one device in there, and I can see that by looking at this devices column here. I can actually click these values here in the column, and it'll actually show me which one it's referring to. So if I'm looking at the screen, and it's like robotics apps has one device in there, okay, let me click that, and it's actually going to take me and show me which one it is. And I go, oh, okay, that's the one. Cool. Yeah, that's how I wanted it. So I can go back to my groups and settings, and I can see here the robotics app. So if I look at my iPads all group, for example, it has 3 devices in it, and that's because I have 3 iPads in total. Now you're probably saying 4, but one of them's unenrolled, so that one doesn't count. So these are the 3 iPads in my group. So by default, that iPads all group contains all my iPads. I didn't have to put anything in there. I didn't have to manually plug them in there. By default, that group is forever staged to contain all your iPads. Let me go back. So you can get as granular as you want with these groups. So as you saw, I have a grade 1 iPad. Maybe I'll make this make more sense. So I already have one iPad in there. Maybe I'll put another one in there. So grade 1 iPad 2. So I got 2 grade 1 iPads in the grade 1 iPads group. And looks like I've already published Starfault to that. And I believe I have a grade 2 iPad. So I'm going to click that one. And I'm going to go again. It's on select criteria by default. Don't want to do that. We want to move over here. It's going to say you're going to lose everything. Totally fine. And now we're going to go and select our other iPad and grade iPad 2. So that was pretty easy just because I renamed them. So because they were named grade 2 and grade 1, that extra layer of planning made my life a lot easier when I came in here when it came time to group them. So now I have both my grade 1 iPads in the one grade 1 iPads group. I have my one grade 2 iPad in the grade 2 iPad group. And I even created another group, a robotics app group, that has one of the iPads of the grade 1 iPads. What a mouthful. I hope that makes sense. So now that I have all my iPads group, I've created them all. This is the way that I have it set up. You can imagine as I get more iPads, let's say I get 10 more next week and they go to the grade 6 program, I would first come in there, rename them grade 6 iPad 1, grade 6 iPad 2, grade 6 iPad 3. Then I would come back in here and then I would open up my grade 6 iPad group and add those new iPads in there by, again, not select criteria, select devices or users, click OK, boom. Find my new iPads in here. Obviously they don't exist now, but You can imagine if I had more, I'd have a longer list here, and I could choose the grade 6 iPad and then put it in there, right? And then once they're all grouped out, it's now time to actually add apps to these groups. Now, I actually showed you earlier that that export button appears multiple times across AirWatch. As you can see in the top right-hand corner here, that export button is there again. If you ever want to export a list of these groups, you can do that as well. Click the export button, and it'll actually, this one was a lot faster, and it actually downloaded it right away. If I open up this spreadsheet, I think it's just going to give me a list of it. I don't know how helpful that's going to be for me. Yeah, it's just going to show me the name of the group, which that's not really super helpful. I guess it might be helpful in that I can see how many devices are in that group, but I can just look at that stuff in AirWatch anyways. I don't know. But that was just, I just wanted to make that pretty clear that, that export button appears multiple times throughout AirWatch. So that export button right there. What? Oh. What does that look like? Oh, hold on. Okay. All right. Sorry. Whew. Thought I got disconnected. So yeah, that export button, you can export a list of whatever you're looking at. So, but in this case, I have them grouped. We're now ready to apply some apps to it. So I'm going to toggle over to the apps and books section here. By default, when you first come into this screen, you're going to see a bunch of unknown stuff like this. And if you actually scroll down far enough, you might actually start seeing some different app names. The problem with that is that all these apps here, they're sort of like a board-wide look of the apps that exist. So even though these apps are here, it doesn't mean that I can necessarily install it. So for example, let's say I wanted ABC Ninja, the alphabet letters and phonics slicing game for kids. I can't click it. I can't do anything with this app. It's not mine. It's actually somebody else's. So to see the apps that apply to me, I have to filter this giant list of board-wide apps to my school's trillium number, or I can type in my school's name. So my school name is Maple Grove Community School. Doesn't really exist. And my trillium number is 9999. So I can either type in the top right-hand corner here, 9999, enter, and it'll show me all the apps that I can work with. And now I can see that each one of these is actually a hyperlink, so I can actually click these and start working with it. So if I click that, I can actually do something with it. I'm not going to jump right ahead, but that's the idea. Is you want to filter that giant list out, which by default looks like this, to the apps that apply to you. So either 9999, which is your school's trillium number, or you can enter in your school. You can actually type in your school name if you don't know what your trillium number is off by heart. So for example, Maple Grove. I'll just type in Maple Grove, not even community school. It's going to show me all my Maple Grove apps here. So these are all the apps that I have to work with. So it's not like I have unfettered access to download or start pushing apps that exist in the App Store right away. With AirWatch, the way that it works is all these apps have to sort of go through a request process. So even though the apps may be free, we still have to be accountable for our licenses. So when you request a free app, we still need to be able to say that even though this app is free, we know that your school is using this app on 26 iPads. So that if the vendor of the app or the developer of the app ever says, hey, I said this app was free, but I didn't think it was free if you're going to use it that much. Maybe I want to charge if you use 20 or more. So just for accountability purposes, because we like to cross all our T's and dot all our I's here at the TDSB, we need to make sure that we are accountable for all of our licenses that we use. And because of that, we have to do an app request process. So for example, if you want an app to appear here so that I can deploy it with AirWatch, it needs to go through the app request form. So these didn't all just get here magically. These got here because I submitted the app request form. And that app request form is actually on serviceit.tdsb.on.ca. If you can remember that and type it out, by all means. But that shortcut is actually also available in your school folder on your desktop. Oops. Back. Here we go. So here's the school shared folder. This is where I clicked AirWatch. It's also where you get like Markbook and LAS. But we actually have a link to Service IT in here as well. And that takes you to the client service desk page, Service IT. And actually, oh, perfect timing right here. This mobile device management page, if I click Learn More, it's going to show me, what the heck? Next. Here we go. Learn More. What is going on? I think I got my ad blockers. Blocking ad blockers blocking the TDSP. Let's see. Oh, you think so? You think they're doing that right now? Okay, well, you're supposed to be able to click learn more, and where it's supposed to take you is here. So let's just pretend that that's what happened. I clicked learn more, and then it took us here. That's a horrible demonstration. Okay, so the app request form is here. I know we're making some changes to the website because um, we want to change this page here. It's kind of buried and it's not super user friendly. We have a different page that we're migrating all our stuff to. But for now, this is where the app request form link is. And here it shows, it says click here for the app request form for free and paid apps. This is like our everything AirWatch page. It just shows you like you got a little introduction video. I don't know what this is all about, marketing stuff. We got an FAQs up here and different training materials and a link to our YouTube channel for the previous webinar sessions. But the app request form is what I wanted to show. If I tap the app request form, it's going to show us that we have to submit the app request form for app to get here. So these apps that are over here, they didn't get here magically. I actually submitted this app request form by clicking here. And the app request form is actually pretty straightforward. If you're requesting free apps, it usually takes about like 1 or 2 business days. If you're getting a paid app, however, it can take anywhere from up to 15 business days, unfortunately. And that is because it goes through teaching and learning. There's a vetting process, the purchasing process. In any case, if you've requested a paid app and it took more than 15 business days, please contact teaching and learning at apprequest@tdsb.on.ca. As it says here, please, most app developers offer 50% discount, but some do not. There's no guarantee an order of 20 or more apps will receive 50% discount. So when you're ordering paid apps, because again, we have to be accountable for all of our licenses, even free, the more you order, sometimes you can actually get a bulk discount. But the app request form, again, is pretty straightforward. I can just fill out all this information. I'll do first name dot last name. And employee number, my role, I'm going to pretend I am a teacher. What's that? Oh, okay. Select my type, so this is a school. I'm just going to pick a random school, Alvin Curling. And here, you would just fill out, whether you want a paid app or free app. Anything like that, right? So if I can do paid app or free app or both. If I had to choose a paid app, it's basically going to, say, hey, did you get permission from your principal? Oh, sorry, are you using your mobile device? So yeah, we're using AirWatch. And I type my principal's name, Felipe. And it'll ask me for my cost center number, whatever that is. So that would be your budget holder would be able to provide you that. That's all the information we get from SAP. And then your general ledger number. And then you have to authorize that you have permission from your principal. And again, that's only this part here, this principal verification is only if the app is paid, right? So because I chose paid app, that's why that option came here. If I choose free app, I don't have to type any of that stuff in. So if I'm doing a free app, I can just proceed past that. And now here it's going to ask me, okay, what app name do you want and what's the VPP app URL? So I can just type in, Angry Birds, right? And then hit submit. The problem is that when the department who gets this ticket is going to look at that app, they're going to see your app request form and go, oh, great. They want Angry Birds. Well, let's see. Let's see what Angry Birds they want. They come into the App Store here, and then they look for Angry Birds, and suddenly, look at all these different variations of Angry Birds. So what they request is on this app request form, you don't just put in the app name. There's a second section here for the VPP app URL. And that is in the event that you request an app that may go unnoticed. Like Angry Birds was a good example of that. So let's say I didn't really mean Angry Birds, I meant Angry Birds Pop. So what they want you to do is they want you to, and this is all detailed here in this instruction form here, the app request form. So it has both the link to the app request form and then these instructions here. It basically asks you to open your browser and go to the iTunes store, which is this one right here. And it asks you to copy the link of the app that you want. So let's say I wanted Angry Birds Pop. I would first click the link here, and Oh, I already clicked it. So now I'm looking at Angry Birds Pop. So here's the app. And now what you do is you go to the top here, you select the entire URL, right click, copy, go back to my app request form up here, and now I paste that in here. So now when I hit submit, there's no confusion as to what I meant by Angry Birds. Yeah, also one other thing to be cognizant of here is when you're searching for the app, the media type you want to change to iOS apps. Because by default it'll be all, and sometimes it'll show you both. So for example, you can see here it shows me all the iPad apps that are available for Angry Birds. But if I keep scrolling, Mac apps. So if I ended up getting down this far on the page and said, oh, I want Angry Birds Space, and I copied this and put this in the form, this is a Mac app. It won't work on your iPad. It only runs on Mac. So you just want to be cognizant that you're choosing an iPad app. So they're actually broken down by section here: iPad, iPhone, iPad, iPhone. If you scroll too far, you'll see Mac. You can just choose just to do iOS apps, and then you won't see Macs at all. You'll just see iPhone and iPad. Okay, so you get your link, plug it in there, hit submit, and then within 1 to 2 business days, if it's free, you'll see it appear right here. If it's a paid app, it could take a little bit longer, anywhere from 10 to 15 business days. What will happen though is when your app is ready, you'll get an email notification anyways telling you that it's ready. If you get an email notification saying that it's ready, you come in here, you look at your app list, and you still don't see that app, you can actually force it to do a manual refresh by pressing the Sync Assets button. And basically what it'll do is it'll look for any new apps that you may have gotten that it wasn't looking for. 90% of the time that fixes, when you get an email notification telling you that an app was pushed out, but you come in here and you don't see it, you just press the Sync Assets button and you'll see that suddenly it will appear in this list. So that's the whole process. That's how we haven't deployed the app yet, but that's the process of getting the app in here. So just to kind of recap where we're at right now, we had our devices, we added them in the AirWatch, we gave them cool names, we put them in different groups, and now it's time to actually deploy one of these apps to those iPads. So I already have a bunch of apps that I had already previously deployed, but I'm going to pick one that I have not deployed yet. Oh yeah, Wonder for Dash and Dots for the robotics program. That makes sense. So as you saw, I had a grade 1 iPad that I put in the robotics group. There's only one iPad in there, but it's the robotics group, and I want to deploy Wonder for Dash and Dots. If I want to deploy this app, I click the name of the app. It'll take me to this screen. Actually, I should show you one more thing first. Sorry. I'm going to pretend that I'm installing Epic at the top. No, yeah, Epic. So let's say I'm installing Epic, and I'm only showing you this. I'm only diverting to this for a second just so I can show you one thing. If I click the Epic app, whenever you get a new app appearing in your AirWatch environment, what you may see is this big blue button that says Enable Device Assignment. If you ever see this button, click it. It'll say, are you sure you want to enable device-based license assignment? Click OK, and you'll never see that blue button again. Why am I telling you this? If you don't press that big blue button, and you only have to press it once, if you don't press that big blue button, what will happen is that app will not deploy. It'll basically ask the iPad for like an Apple ID, I believe. So that big blue button there. In fact, I think I have it on one of these iPads here. So let's say I go into the catalog. So there's the Epic app there, but I haven't pushed the big blue button here. So if I go to install this app on an iPad, but I haven't pushed that button, and I go to install, it's going to say sure. This is what I get. I get this weird error message. It says the application you are trying to install requires that you register with Apple's blah 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 blah. I can't push this app out without pushing that big blue button. It's very silly. We've requested that they push that button for you guys in advance, but sometimes they may have missed it. If you ever see that big blue button, press it, click OK, and you'll never see it again. And then that way you won't have any problems installing your apps. So I'm not gonna press it because I actually want to keep it for future demonstrations. But once you do press it, I'll scroll back down to Wonder for Dash and Dots, going back to my original example here. Once you click that button, you'll see that it's gone. No more big blue button here. Okay. Now that we've decided which app we want to deploy, we're going to click Save and Assign. And it's going to ask me to create an assignment rule. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add an assignment for the Robotics Club. So I click Add Assignment. Sorry, I may have pressed that too fast. Add assignment right up here. In the add assignment window, now what I can do is I can actually find my groups and then add apps, and add these apps to those groups. And how do I do that? I hover my mouse over add assignment by, I go to license code by smart group, and a new window appears, or a new text field rather. When I put my cursor in here, it's going to show me all the different groups I can put this app on. So I can do multiple groups here if I wanted to. I can say, well, I want the grade 3s to have it, and then I can do another one, license code by smart group. I want the grade 6s to have it, and you can just keep going like this, choosing all the different groups that you want to have it. Obviously, this would be redundant because I'm saying all the iPads and then 2 individual groups, so that doesn't make any sense. But I just wanted to show that. I'm just going to X these out here. Okay, because we don't want it on any of those. We want to put it on the robotics. So I'm going to hover my mouse over here, license code by smart group, click in here, and then I'm going to go to the robotics apps. Now, before I hit save, I need to actually allocate licenses for it. So like I said earlier, even though this app is free, we still have to be accountable for how many licenses of an app that we're using in the event that a developer wants to come after us for whatever reason. So we have, when we get a free app, we automatically put about 500 licenses for that app in your environment. And in this case, it shows that there's 10 on hold. That's because I did something earlier I shouldn't have, but ignore that. You will see 0 here. But it shows total licenses 500. Unallocated 490 because those on hold is 10 minus 500. But so basically I have 490 licenses to work with right here at this moment. And right now I can see that my robotics app group has 1 device in there. If I want this this Wonder for Dash and Dots to apply to the robotics app, I need to give this group at least 1 license or more, because there needs to be 1 license for every device. Now, because you don't want to come back into AirWatch every single time and constantly change these values around if you get a new robotics iPad, for example, what we suggest that you shoot for the moon. So say, for example, right now I only have 1 iPad that's in the robotics app group, but I know next week we're actually ordering 20 more. So right now I'm just setting this all up and I only have 1 for test, but I know next week I'm getting 20 more. You'll want to actually shoot for the moon on this allocated value. So I know I'm getting 20 more. I only have 1 in there. And let's assume that, who knows, maybe a year from now I'll get another 20 more. So I'll go something really high, like 40. So I have 490 licenses to play with, but I'm saying that the robotics app group can take up to 40 licenses from my pool of 500. So I've gone way overkill here. I only have 1 device, but I'm saying if I ever decide to put 40 more iPads in this group, I don't have to come back in here and change this value. So I'm going a lot higher than I should. And then I choose my, so that's the sort of license idea here. So it shows I have 1 device, I'm allocating 40 for this group, and I can hit save and it will deploy the app. And I'm actually going to do that now. But I just want to draw your attention to the assignment type here. It shows auto. What that means is that it's automatically going to push this app. So as you saw when we first put this iPad into AirWatch, it started right away grabbing all these different apps. And it did that because this assignment type says auto. It means it's automatically going to deploy that app to it. So if I hit save, one of my iPads, oh, here we go. So now I can see my assignment rule that I've created here. That's great. If I one more screen, I hit save and publish. It's going to show me all the devices that are going to get it. And in this case, I have 1 iPad that's going to get it. So like a last minute, like, oh, by the way, this is who's going to get it. I can hit publish. And what should happen is one of my iPads should now automatically get this app, assuming it's online and talking to the network. Unfortunately, I don't remember which one is which. So let's just look at them both. So neither of them have it yet. Mind you, with AirWatch, most things take time, depending on the network. Just going to refresh the page. Oh, actually, I know this one's going to get it, the one on the right, so I don't really need this one anymore. This one on the right should be getting it in due time. Just close all this stuff. So AirWatch is very dependent on the network. I'm just gonna leave it here until it decides to deploy. When I catch it in the corner of my eye, I'll go back to it. I just don't want to waste any time. But eventually the app will deploy over there, and hopefully I can catch it in the corner of my eye. So that was the actual act of deploying an app. In fact, I can actually go back and look at all the other stuff. As you can see on this iPad, um, there's Starfall and Scratch Junior and Docs and Google Keep and all that stuff, right? All that stuff came from AirWatch. So if I pick one of those apps, for example, Google Keep, I can see, well, I know why it got there. If I click the Google Keep app and I go to save and assign, I can see that I previously had put in a assignment rule for all iPads to get it. So if I can actually come back in and like edit this assignment, so I can select that, go to edit, and I can see here previously what I had done is I said all iPads are going to get this device or this app automatically. So, and I've assigned 50 licenses for 3 devices. Again, overkill, right? And so you can actually go back and take a look at your existing rules and edit them and modify them. Every time you make a change to your rules, it'll show you what's going to happen, like what are the changes, and that's what this different screen is here. Now, because I went in there and I added, and I didn't make any changes, I said, yeah, leave it. It's just going to let me know that all those iPads are still going to have Google Keep, and they're going to be left unchanged. So when I hit publish, it's basically going to do nothing. But I could actually like change things, and then you'll see that it'll show me what the changes are. So if I go back to Google Keep, select that, and let's say this time around, I changed my mind. Google Keep doesn't need to be on all the iPads. It only needs to be on some of them. I can come in here and edit this, and I can say, nope, don't need it on all of them. I only need it on my grade 1 iPads. Oh, there's 2 here. Ew, jeez. What's this? Hold on a sec. All right, add assignment by license code by smart group. Stop it. Why is it doing that? Hold on, it's acting weird. I'm gonna refresh the page. It still hasn't gotten the app. Very strange. Okay, Google Keep. So let's say I don't want Google Keep on all my iPads anymore. I can come in here and sort of undo what I did. So if I don't want it on all, or I don't want it on all my iPads anymore, I can come in here, edit the rule. I can close out this rule that I created here, and I can create a new one. I only want the grade 2 iPads to have it. I'm going to give them 50 licenses, automatically deploy it. Boom. Save that, save and publish. Oh, actually, let me show you real quick. It's happening. Okay, so Wonder for Dash and Dot started installing on this iPad, just in case you didn't believe me. Eventually, it did make its way over to this iPad. Now, again, I only have this one iPad in the robotics group, so this iPad behind it isn't in the robotics group, and it's not going to get that app that this one has. Only this one is going to get it. In fact, if I go to the catalog, I shouldn't even have the ability to even see it, which I'll show you the catalog in just a second. But Wonder for Dash and Dots is on there now. So that did deploy, just forewarning. So, but what I was doing just now is I actually changed my previous rule to have Google Keep on all my iPads, and I'm saying, you know what, they're only going to be on the grade 2 iPads now. And right before I hit publish, you can see the different changes that are going to happen. It shows me, well, these 2 iPads are going to remove it, and this one's going to remain unchanged. And that's fine. So if I hit publish, it's actually going to remove those from all my grade 2 iPads. And in fact, if I go back over, Google Keep is now gone off this iPad. However, on this one, it should still have it. So Google Keep is still there. Oh, this one's the manual install one. So the Google Keep is still there. I didn't force it off this iPad. No worries, Samir. If you got to take care, thank you very much for joining us. I understand that I'm kind of chewing up a lot of time here, trying to blaze through the last bit of this here. If you got to go, feel free to, by all means. So you can see that I managed to get it. The Google Keep. Actually, Google Keep's gone on this one, so that means that this one's not going to lose Google Keep. This one will. This is a grade 2 iPad. This is a grade 1 iPad. Whew. So That's that. So you can see that you can actually work backwards here. So if I want to remove apps from the iPads, I can actually go backwards with that. So for example, you saw that I had Google Keep on. Let's say I know that I have Google Sheets on all of them. I can actually click Google Sheets, and then I can go back into my rule here, and I can actually select this existing rule and delete it, and then hit save and publish, and it's going to remove it from all my iPads. So to install apps, that's how you do it, and to remove apps, you effectively undo the install. So now Google Sheets is gone off this one. What's that? Everyone's taken off? Did we go overtime? Oh, it's over until 2. Oh my God. Guys, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I'd take so much time. Okay, well, you guys actually got the gist of it. That was the most important part. You saw how to add an app. You saw the apps got in there. We put iPads into AirWatch. We renamed those iPads, and then we grouped them into different groups, and now we're just pushing these apps to those groups. And then you can push an app to the group and remove an app from the group, and it'll push them to all the iPads and remove them from all the iPads. I wanted to show a lot more. There's just no way to ever get everything done with AirWatch in a small session, unfortunately. I wanted to show you all the different things that we're commonly running into as problems, but it actually turned out not even need to be necessary because a lot of you guys hadn't even seen AirWatch. This is like the first time you're seeing it. So that's totally fine. I'm going to call it a wrap now. What's that? Oh, that's right. Jacqueline was the only one out of everyone here who had questions. So I think what we're going to do is, Jacqueline, if you have any questions, if you're assuming you're still there, please feel free to ask us, and I'll actually go into detail with them right now if you want to stick around. For everyone else, if you do need to leave, it's 2 o'clock. Sorry, 3 o'clock. I'm sorry it took so much time. Thank you very much for joining us, though. I hope you guys learned something and you guys have something to take away from this. Okay, Jacqueline doesn't have any questions. Good stuff. Okay, guys, thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us here this afternoon with the AirWatch webinar. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to coming out, learning about this product because it's board wide. We don't really have an option. We got to use it. So let's get familiar with it. Yes, Demos, we hope you'll be set up by the end of the week as well. We're gonna get that ticket kicked off and rolling for you. Make sure you get added in to the AirWatch group and have you log in to manage your iPads. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact us. Yes, by all means, actually, you can email me directly, as faux pas as that is. If you have any questions regarding AirWatch, feel free to email me directly. My email's right there, brandon.silva@tdsb.on.ca, and I can reach out to you guys and get to the bottom of what it is that you have any misunderstandings with AirWatch. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Take care, and good day.